in its normal manner. Western people have always been more or less objective, and they object easily to almost anything. They have never been able to agree on any particular premise. And another point that has been in their disfavor for a long time is the tremendous materialistic overambition of Western peoples. A Westerner, for the most part, is an individual trying to improve his physical condition. He wants more money, he wants more status, he wants all of the good things of life. And the good things of life have become more or less an obsession with him. He also has been a very aggressive creature. He is always out conquering somebody. And in the process of revolution and upheaval, he has developed certain fatalistic attitudes toward life. The Western person is not by nature inclined to be contemplative. He is not the type that sits under a tree and meditates upon the mysteries of life. He is an individual who cuts down the tree, pollutes the ground, and finally turns around and tries to find synthetic escapes for the mistakes that he has made. He is a plunderer of life, not a supporter of it. As a result of this, he is not very much inclined to contemplate optimistically, constructively, or idealistically the future of his own existence. He is faced with the same problem as every other corner of creation, yet he reacts to it quite differently from some other people. The reaction being largely dominated by his personal interests. The Western person is so tremendously dedicated to being himself that he mistakes his material structure for his real nature. Now, other nations are gradually catching on to this idea, and I think we can say with a considerable amount of regret that materialistic ambitions have been transferred to most other parts of the earth. Most nations now are in a great competition for material supremacy. They believe that they can achieve something or other by conquering each other. About all they have succeeded in doing to date, however, is to liberate souls in this world on the battlefield or by starvation into the invisible realms which the conquerors and the conquered do not believe in. This is sad, but unfortunately part of a pattern that we cannot get over. Actually, this situation brings into focus the Eastern equivalent of some of our beliefs. And I suppose that for simplicity, dignity, and directness of approach, and for understandability and integrity, it would be difficult to find any school or any teaching that has been more successful in this search and in this process than the great heart doctrine of Amida Buddhism. The Buddha Amida is the central figure of a very large group of Buddhists, both in Japan and China, and in other parts of the Far East, and some even in the West, who represents the personification of enlightened love. Amida never lived. He is an ideal figure. He is an archetype. They know this. They know also, however, that Amida signifies or symbolizes in a more or less concrete way the infinite life of the universe, manifesting through a combination of infinite wisdom and infinite love. In other words, Amida is space as love and wisdom. It is an eternal principle, a psychic energy permeating everything. It is the tremendous life principle which extends beyond the stars, beyond the galaxies, beyond anything that we know, and even in a mysterious way goes into the dark abysses of space and bestows upon them the blessing of the wisdom and love of reality. Amidism, therefore, is a belief founded in a very simple concept, namely that everything that exists is a manifestation of the infinite love of life for its own creatures. That also each creature is an embodiment of this life principle. That each individual is responsible for the use that he makes of this principle. That he is responsible for the use that he makes of life and of living things. For this reason, Amidism is a philosophy or a religion of harmlessness. It recognizes no merit in destruction of any kind. It accepts no vengeances, no revenges. It can condone no grudges or intemperances or intolerances of any kind, because all of these exist only where the being involved has not become aware that the universe itself exists upon a strange warp and woof of wisdom love, and that the two terms are interchangeable, that they are two names for the same thing. Wisdom is not separate from love. Love is not separate from wisdom. They are both manifestations of life itself in infinite, continuous manifestation. They represent this concept by a radiant figure, a figure that represents an evolvement of consciousness. Life in the process of growth is constantly producing superior types of things. Down through the ages, it has resulted in the great descent of evolutionary procedures. Life is forever excelling itself. And as in the story of the chambered nautilus, man, nature, the space around him, the universe, chaos, cosmos, are all in a case of constant growth. They are building nobler palaces and temples for their souls. Thus, everything is growth. And growth means that in the course of time, growth must result in things attaining a degree of superior growth. Growth is more than a physical situation. The individual is born, grows up, matures, grows old, and passes on. But this does not necessarily imply that he grows up. It only implies that he has moved through a period of time and has worn out the instrument with which he came into this world. The fact that he may leave almost as he entered is by no means unusual. And there's plenty of evidence, scientifically collectible, to the fact that the individual can, with care and thought and discrimination, can leave this world as foolish as when he came here. He can carefully avoid anything that might result in improvement for himself. He might be careful also not to perform any action that is sufficiently unselfish to be suitable to reward with some benefit. We have today narcotics problems. These problems affect people who are college graduates, successful in all walks of life, who simply do not care about trying to be any better than they are. And because of this, they are getting worse every day. We have the same with alcohol. The individual does not really care enough or believe enough about his own destiny to be concerned. He simply goes along and may very well leave as he entered, without very much growth or understanding or maturing of his own life. Other less flagrant problems simply represent self-interest, the individual living from day to day to do what he feels like, and gradually, unable to do the things that he has always wanted to do, he fades away. Now, this cannot be a proper interpretation of life by an intelligent creature. Man is born with a power within himself which, if he will use it, will enable him to make a much better judgment about his own conditions, the conditions of his world, and the purposes for both. As long as he is willing, however, to be ignorant, suffer the results of ignorance, and be miserable and unhappy in exchange for a few days, years of gratifications, he will be as he is. Now, in the doctrine of the Pure Land sect of Buddhism, we have the realization that has been bred into these people for thousands of years that life is important. Life is meaningful. We are here for a reason. We are here to fulfill a purpose, and that the real purpose is to grow rather than to accumulate. The real reason to be here is to become better, to make use of the opportunities of existence to enrich character and ennoble human relationships. If these factors are ignored, or even put in second position, the life is damaged, or is imperfect, or lacks full understanding of its own significance. The Pure Land, therefore, tells us very frankly that the individual must plan his own growth. That this growth is not something in which he can depend upon constant indoctrination by other people. Gautama Buddha, of course, who was the prime moving principle behind all Buddhism, observed on one occasion that I will not believe a doctrine because the scriptures say that it is true. I will not believe a doctrine because the great teachers have taught it. I will not believe a doctrine because my countrymen and those around me insist that it is true. I will not accept any of these things and blindly follow them. I will follow a belief or a doctrine only if in my own heart I am convinced that it is true. This is one of the problems we have. People are following doctrines and teachings which their own hearts have not yet found ways to interpret or understand. Therefore, Amidism is called the heart doctrine. It is the individual growing up heart first and recognizing what are called the Buddha seeds that are planted by eternal life in the heart of man. He must help these seeds of truth, realization, and integrity to grow by dedicated effort. If he does not do this, then the real purpose of life is lost. Amidism arose as what is called the Northern School, or the Great Doctrine. And the Great Doctrine is the teaching of the large path that leads to salvation. It is called the Mahayana School, and is separated from the Southern School, which is called the Hinayana, and is firmly set in Siam, or Thailand, and what is now Lanka was Ceylon. These Southern followers follow an ascetic life. They renounce all material things, and putting on the robe, wander into homelessness. In other words, to them, the life of truth is a monastic existence, a concept that also dominated Europe for many hundreds of years. The Mahayana, however, the large vehicle, says no. This is not the real answer. The real answer is not that the individual shall perform these types of austerities because they are recommended or told to him by his religion or his philosophy or by his various teachers. The real answer to the entire problem